off there. Okay, so you might see in here, you're going to hear me talk about cloud, and you're going to hear me talking about managed service providers, multi-tenant situations. So what we're seeing in the marketplace for IBMI is that, of course, there's still many customers who own their own hardware. We're also seeing customers who would like to work with managed service providers, and where those managed service providers are hosting many customers on their power system boxes running IBMI. And we're also seeing the emergence of public cloud offerings from various companies, IBM being one, and there's probably others you're aware of. So it's no longer just an on-premise system-defined marketplace anymore. It's really defined by LPARs and virtual machines. They call them in the cloud, same thing as an LPAR. And they want to be able to move those workloads around. They want to be able to move their capacity around. They want flexibility, is what we're seeing out there. So I'm spending time on this because this is the theme of MIMIX 10, is to better serve cloud managed service provider ecosystems. That's what we really try to do with MIMIX 10. Of course, it's going to serve those customers who are running on premise as well. So a few changes I'd like to tell you right up front with MIMIX 10. So number one, the MIMIX metered usage will not be supported at MIMIX 10. We will work with our partners like OneTeam to transition off this program with minimal disruption. So that's a separate conversation we can have. No worries, we will not pull the plug on you, but we need to wind that one down. MIMIX, Assure Mimix licenses on Power 10. So IBM has announced Power 10 and is available now. And so the only way that you can license Power 10 is with our new CPW license model. And the next one is if you're using WebSphere MQ series, or SAP, you are not, it's no longer necessary for you to have special feature keys as of MIMIX 9.0.31. So if you're using those products, I think this would be welcome news. You don't need those feature keys anymore to make MIMIX work. And finally, I don't think this is any of you, but maybe it is, the enterprise monitor feature from Assure Mimix has been withdrawn at version 10. So see the README for details on that. If you have any questions or concerns about that, feel free to reach out to me. But I don't believe that that's going to affect many people at all. Okay, so then I'm going to spend some time on the CPW licensing, and let me just pause here for a second. Dennis, everything coming through okay?
Yes, thank you, Dan. Yeah, perfectly, thank you.
Okay, let's continue then. So a quick covering the CPW-based licensing. So we, with MIMIX 10, have three editions of MIMIX now: the standard, the professional, and the enterprise. So this is consolidated down from many different MIMIX versions like MIMIX DR, MIMIX Professional, MIMIX Enterprise, but then you could also add on MIMIX Global, MIMIX for Power HA, and MIMIX for Flash Copy, and so forth. So we have consolidated this down to three choices. And the standard edition is a simple 2-node replication for HADR. This is your working man's MIMIX, okay, or working person's MIMIX. This is what most customers are going to need. They need logical replication for their source, replicating to their one target. That's all they need. That's what comes with standard. The professional level is for multi-node replication. So if you have advanced HADR, let's say you've got a 3-node, maybe a 4-node, maybe you're doing some data distribution between two different switchable pairs, that's professional, okay? And then the enterprise level is unlimited. Everything that Mimix, every feature that Mimix possibly has is at the enterprise, and that's for the largest customers with high complexity, high volume, very, very large customers. Okay, so this new CPW-based licensing is a single license per edition, simplifying accounting and management. So keyword, single license. So if you have 1 or 10 LPARs, single license. If you have 1 or 10 systems, single license. So this one license covers all of those scenarios. Whereas before, you might have many licenses and they might be moving around and things like that. So this should simplify that. It works across on-premise, hosted, cloud, and hybrid environments. And the license capacity can be moved to different hardware, different locations, to the cloud and to hosting centers. So if you have licensed CPW for an LPAR and you want to move that LPAR to another physical frame at another data center and the same, doesn't matter, you can do that because you're licensing the capacity, a defined capacity of CPW. So that you see there where it says coming soon, live partition mobility. So this is a good example. If let's say you're running on a system and you want to do a live partition mobility to another system, we will support that and you can do it. And if your CPW remains the same, you won't have a problem. Now, there's going to be sort of a progression to this, but our plan is that when you do a live partition mobility, the software will continue to run and protect the business. So you don't have to call us in the middle of the night on a weekend or on a Christmas or whatever. You can call us during the business day, and if your serial number changed, then you will have to amend the contract if that's a permanent change. But your software will run and your business will be protected. And then further into the future, if and when LPAR serial numbers come out, unique serial numbers by LPAR, if and when they come out, we will be supporting that. And that will make live partition mobility even better. Okay. Next slide here. This one is not something that I'm going to go through, but the important thing here is that it shows the standard, professional, and enterprise levels up here. And you can see that those levels are limited by CPW. And then you get, depending on the version, you can see what's included. Again, the standard edition covers everything. And by the way, the standard edition does allow planned role swap support. Let's see. I think that's enough about that. Yeah, I think that covers that pretty well. So now that is what I've talked about so far is just the license. Oh, I wanted to say one thing about this. A common question that has been asked about this is don't confuse this with MIMIX 10. So if you are on MIMIX 10 and you have a maintenance that's current or a subscription that is current on the old SKUs, not these new ones that I'm talking about here, the old products, you are totally entitled to upgrade to MIMIX 10. Your license did not change just because you upgraded to MIMIX 10. So your old product that you have and are licensed for did not change. And because you're current on maintenance or subscription, you're entitled to upgrade to MIMIX 10. So the new products that I'm explaining here, you would have to do a conversion to get to those products. So I hope that answers any questions you may have regarding that. Feel free to ask, though, if you're not sure. Okay. Now, I'd like to talk to you about the technology that we've put into MIMIX 10, and this is one of my favorite ones here, is the journal-driven configuration. So we added automated protection to keep pace with your business. And so let's just go through this. New data groups. We've added where you can have new data groups which are automatically configured and replication started when new journals are created. So for an example of that is if you create a collection, we can pick up that journal and automatically configure a data group for it and replicate that collection. This will accelerate and simplify your configuration management, especially when complex journaling scenarios exist. The important point here is that, you know, if you're a person who actually works with Mimix, and let's say you have a scenario where you have a library and there's objects configured to multiple journals in that library, you know that it is always a little bit of a task, a chore, if you will, to configure the replication for that. So with Mimix 10, that is going to be totally simpler. So the simple way to put this journal-driven configuration is that if you have a file that is journaled to a journal, it's replicated by Mimix. If you end journaling on that file, replication ends on that file. That's the basis of the journal-driven configuration. So we have gone ahead and added in some new flexible selection rules to support this. So this is a foundational change that we've made, which will greatly simplify the whole Mimix configuration process. So I'm going to show some examples of what this means. So the first example is ending and starting journaling. So first of all, let's just say we have table 1 and it's replicating via journal 1 and data group 1 to the target. Okay, so replication is going happily here. So then we end journaling on table 1. You will see that over here on the right, if you saw it, the line disappeared. So now table 1 is no longer being replicated. It's removed from replication. Then we start journaling on table 1 to journal 2. So now we've started journaling to journal 2 and replication automatically starts to table 1 through data group 2. So we started out replicating through data group 1, we ended journaling, we started journaling, and now we're replicating through data group 2. So that's how that works. Now, let's say the administrator intentionally ended journaling, but they forgot to restart it. So some time will pass and we're going to allow you, because you probably did this on purpose, but then you forgot, and we're going to automatically pick up that and start journaling on that. So that's what we call a safety net. And so if you forget to restart journaling, you've got safety net to pick it up and add it back into replication. The other thing too is, let's say you're coming in ready for a switch, and your table 1 is not journaled. Your audits will alert you that you have a table that's not configured for journaling. So you're protected there, and the recovery will be to start journaling on it. Okay, the next example of automated journal configuration is support for new journals. So here we are, data group 1 is monitoring the QAuth journal, the system audit journal, for new journals and schemas. Okay, so it's just happily running along here, monitoring QAuth journal. And so now the administrator creates a new SQL schema, which creates the QSQ journal. So what happens here is that data group 1 is going to pick that up. And it's going to create data group 2 for QSQ journ and create the schema on the target. So now you have schema 1 replicated using QSQ journ with data group 2. Now, if you go ahead and subsequently drop the schema, data group 2 is removed from the configuration and the schema is deleted. Okay, the next example I'd like to show you is how we've simplified the selection rule. So this goes back to what I was originally mentioning, that with the conventional data groups, you have to add a bunch of excludes and includes, or complex configuration, I'll call it, in order to support the case where you have objects in a library journal to multiple journals. And so what we have on the left here is, if you're manually configuring object entries, this is the old way versus the new way, journal driven configuration of object entry. So you can see here that for library 1, we have an include, and then we have these table 1 and table 2. So table 1 and table 2 are replicated by journal 2. And so we had to add in includes and excludes for those. Now, one thing that it's interesting to point out is that table 1 and table 2 might have many logical files. We've seen customers with hundreds of logical files over a table, and they get added and they get removed. And so you can't even think about adding all those object entries for those logical files. So what happens is they end up getting covered by object replication rather than database replication, which is fine, but just it's notable. But with the journal-driven configuration, this is the configuration we need. We just have the include for the library, and then we don't have any additional includes or excludes of any kind. So this is a huge simplification with the journal-driven configuration, because table 1 and table 2 are mirrored because they're journaled. And all these logical files are picked up because they go where the parent physical file goes. So you will have database replication on all your logicals on table 1 and table 2 with the journal-driven configuration with this simple configuration. And if you are in this case, it's usually not just 2 tables. It could be tens of tables or maybe even hundreds of tables. So this is a huge simplification with MIMIX 10. Okay. So moving on to the next feature in MIMIX 10 is the 5250 option for object recovery management. So I don't think I need to spend too much time on this one, but with MIMIX 9, we added the object correction activity, but we only added it into the Assure Unified Interface, or also known as the BSP, also known as the GUI. Okay, so the object correction activity would show things that recoveries that were in progress or perhaps stuck. You can see not recovered. So we never added that to the 5250. And from day 1 of MIMIX 9, we realized that that really probably should be in there. So we've added the work with recoveries on the green screen, so that is available to you now. You have a number of different options there, and I think that will be welcome for those folks who primarily use the 5250. The work with recoveries window on the Assure Unified interface is still there. Okay, so the next thing is object synchronization designed for the cloud. Now, if I just take a moment before I go to the next slide, uh, I mentioned the public cloud, okay, and what we're seeing with the public cloud is that there aren't really, let's just say there's scarcity of tape devices. So when you own your own hardware and you usually would have a tape device, compatible tape devices, hopefully, where you can do saves and you can do restores. So a typical case would be that a customer would do a save on the production system and do a full restore on a backup system to seed the HA box. And then we would turn on replication and everything was running, and then we would get it in sync and get switch ready and so on. But now with the cloud, we're seeing scarcity of tape devices. So that means that we basically need to push things through the cloud, or excuse me, through the network to get to the cloud system. So that's what we focused on here. And so synchronization is a critical function. There's many reasons for it. You might have an initial sync for migrations or new backup systems. You might have audit recoveries initiating a sync. You might have virtual switch recoveries initiating a sync, target journal inspection recoveries, apply job exception handling. All of those could be a synchronization action. And what we really wanted to do is to get those done in an orderly fashion without impacting the production system. Very, very critical. Don't impact the production system. So, um, so we made some changes to do that. And so Assure Mimix 10 intelligently evaluates the state of the backup objects to choose the most efficient synchronization method, enables more frequent automated updates to backup objects for improved overall data integrity and more aggressive RPOs, object synchronization at pace with fast changing cloud computing environments, lower impact on the production system, and minimize administration. So we're trying to have less user interaction when it comes to any kind of syncing. We're trying to minimize the impact to the production system and just get the sync done as efficiently using the best tools that we have. So this is what we're delivering with Mimix 10. So with Mimix 10 now, we have asynchronous recovery manager, recovery queue, and recovery jobs. Say what? Sorry about that. What does that mean? I like to say it's like a traffic cop. So you have a traffic cop who's directing synchronization traffic to make sure that it's done in orderly fashion and it's not going to bog down the production system. So we added a traffic cop with Mimix 10 today. And so we have some Mimix policy controls for number of active recovery jobs, number of retries to perform on a failed recovery. Okay, so these are the tools that you have to control how much synchronization activity you want. And then I already covered the new work with recovery panel in the 5250. So that is going to give you feedback of any recoveries or synchronization tasks that are underway. And then coming soon in later releases of Mimix 10 in a subsequent service pack, this is where we bring the intelligence in. So figure out the optimal object recovery technique and then improve the recovery ordering, making sure we do things in a proper order when we sync. And then we're going to look at object size, use the best tech. I'm sure you have maybe thought about this where, okay, you've got a file that's 500 million records. What's the best way to get that in sync? So we want the software to figure that out. So humans don't need to do that. And then improved multi-member file recovery and greater control over system resources being consumed by recovery processes. We already did some of that, but we'll be doing more. Okay, so this is just a screenshot of the recovery processing policies, and you see that down here. And Dennis asked me to talk for 30 minutes, and I went over by just a couple. So that brings us to our Q&A. So that's it. That's all I have, Dennis.
We do have a few questions, Dan. I'll just unmute everybody. 1 second. And then, oh, hang on. Hang on. The first question we have, whilst I'm unmuting everybody and trying to work out how to do that, with the automatic journal changes in version 10, one of the questions was, with the safety net for automatically restarting journaling post a shutdown, is there a parameter value for time? How long to wait before it's automatically restarted? Oh, hang on, Dan. Something's going. Oh, you're on mute.
I went on mute there. How's this?
Much better.
I don't remember putting myself on mute, but anyway. Okay, so the way that works is there's two things that are going to do that. The safety net is, so first of all, you have to have the configuration set to do that. So you need an object entry for start journ for that, like for that library. Okay, and you'll see that in the README. By the way, if you aren't familiar with the README, that is a very, very good resource. So each time we release software, whether it's Service Pack or GA version, we have a README. And so you can go there and that will explain how this works. So you have to have the start journ object entry, and then what happens is that we have the deploy configuration run every so often. And I think right now, don't hold me to this, I believe it's every 48 hours. So that runs, let's just say every 48 hours. It also runs if you change the configuration and do things like that. So it would pick it up after 48 hours. But it also, when the audits run, they will pick it up as well. So you are subject to the audit schedule. So if you were running a full audit like every night, it would pick it up then. Or if you were running a full audit on the weekends, then it would only pick it up on the weekends.
Mm-hmm. Okay, everyone should be able to unmute themselves and ask questions as well. The second question was also to do with the automatic journal part, was saying, well, what happens if you do need to have excludes?
Yes, excludes are fully supported. No problem there at all. If an example of that, there's actually some new functionality related to this. So let's say that you want to have a journal-centric data group that you only want physical files for, right? So you start journaling, and you want those physical files to go, but you don't want any logical files at all. So what you can do is you can say for all libraries, exclude all logical files. So that you couldn't do that in the past. You can do that now, but you can do any exclusions that you want, just like normal.
Okay, and another question in the chat was, do we still have to add data group file entries for the libraries we will add? I guess going back to the automatic journal creation question.
Yeah, so that question, the DGFE, data group file entries, yes, you still have data group file entries for journal-centric configuration, but the DGFEs, generally speaking, again, if you are journaled, they're there. If they're not journaled, they're not there. So you don't have, there's nothing manual there really to do. Now, thinking about it, I believe there is a way to load DGFEs from a journal. So that what that does is it goes and looks at the journal, the files that are journaled or the objects that are journaled to that journal, and it'll pull it into the configuration just like normal. But you shouldn't be doing too much of that. But there might still be cases where you need to.
Okay. Any of our participants can unmute themselves and ask any questions you'd like from Dan. So feel free to jump in.
Hi, Dan. My name's Lou. I'm with OneTeam. Is all the journal-centric or journal-based features all does it have the flexibility if you want it on or want it off?
Oh, of course, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So if you've been around Mimix for a while, they don't turn anything off on automatically. And sometimes that works to our detriment, to be honest, because then you end up with customers who are not running the best features out there. But in this case, no, if you upgrade from Mimix 9 to Mimix 10, and you have data groups configured, we will not touch those data groups at all. And if you want to go to the journal centric, you have two choices. You can either convert that data group or change the data group definition to use journal centric, but you also might want to consider just creating a separate data group, entirely new one, and sort of turning the one off and turning the other on. So you might want to experiment with that a little bit. But yes, we will not turn that on automatically. Now, with regards to the synchronization improvements, of course, that's part of core replication. So you just get that out of the box.
Thank you.
I haven't seen any more questions in the chat, but I'm sure someone else might have some questions perhaps. Is anyone trying to talk and cannot? Put your name in the chat box, I guess, if you're having some issues.
Hi, Tab. It's Lou again. I have one more question for Dan.
Sure, go for it. Anyone's welcome to ask.
Dan, with the new work recovery screens in the 5250, because I think it came in at Service Pack 31, is Mimix 10 have an enhanced version, or it's basically what was brought in at Service Pack 31?
That's an astute question. So we wanted to get that out as soon as we could. We added it into the later versions of 9.0, but we said we're gonna illuminate that feature with Mimix 10.
Okay, no problem.
Good questions.
I'm not seeing
Okay,
any more.
sorry, got one more for Dan. So Dan, let's say we have a scenario where we use journaling centric, and we say we want these libraries to be journaled to this journal, and turn it on, and Mimix does all its magic under the covers. And sometime down the track, customer says, yeah, but I don't want these libraries now, or these objects or files now not journaled. Do you stop journaling and apply an exclude, or do you just apply the exclude?
Yeah, right. Great. Very good. So remember I said about the object entry start journ. That's a new object entry with Mimix 10. So if that data group, if any data group for that library includes a start journ object entry, that's your safety net. So if you end journaling on it, it's going to be restarted happily for you at a later time, as we discussed. So
Okay.
if you don't want that functionality, just don't include that object entry, or you can add and exclude.
Okay, so the start journ option is in the object entry parameters. Is that right?
That is correct. That is an
Okay.
object entry. So you would create a data group object entry for a library with an object type start journ,
Start
str
journ.
journ.
Okay.
Yep. So you can kind of see where we're going with this.
Yes.
You can see that we want to be able to with this, you can make much more use of generics. So you can say, I want to replicate A, B, C, D through Z libraries, right? With this configuration. And so I think you should look for that over time in the future. I'm not ready to just say, oh yeah, push a single button and the configuration magically appears, but we're kind of heading that way, hopefully. So we're trying to make it much easier to configure.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Dennis, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it. And just so everybody knows, we didn't actually get Dan up in the middle of the night. It was actually the end of his working day at 4 p.m. when he started this yesterday. But like everything in Australia, we're ahead of the US. So thanks for everybody for taking time. If you just thought of a question, then just quickly unmute and butt in. But if not, then we'll. I thank you for your time. We'll send a follow-up email with the link to the recording and all that sort of stuff, so you can go and re-listen to it, or ask your fellow colleagues to check it out. So again, thank you for your time, and we will be doing some more of these in the future.
Okay.
And thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you all very much for listening.
No worries, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye now.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Everyone, bye.
Thank you.